Typhoon Rolly, known as Goni in the Philippines, just left a wake of destruction behind it, specifically here across southeastern Luzon, through Legazpi, parts of Bicol, and Catanduanes. There's still widespread communication outages out here. So as I'm making this, heading into Monday morning, I have seen at least 10 reports of deaths, and hopefully that does not climb. But the scary thing is there is still widespread communication outages. This is actually a mudslide, or a lahar, in fact, because it's volcanic there in San Francisco. Hundreds of homes have been buried there as well. It just shows the destruction of this storm system and how dangerous it is. And thankfully there was widespread evacuations ahead of this, and the Philippines did prep prior to landfall for a quick recovery. But despite that, the challenges of getting to people really quickly and helping them out is still there, just because of roads being blocked and outages. One thing also I do want to address before I get into the forecast here: Manila, I know it passed south of you. You can actually take a look here at the microwave imagery. The bulk of those winds, the bulk of that high cloud cover, actually passed over towards Mindoro instead of pushing through the NCR. If I could go back and do the forecast all over again, and I feel like Pagasa probably feels the same way, Signal Force 4 would have still been issued for Manila based on all the data that was presented to us at the time. The only thing you can do as forecasters, though, and if you have any inspiring meteorologists watching this as well, always look back at the data, figure out what happened, why did the track shift towards the south, and apply that into the next storm system. We got another storm actually in the forecast out there northeast of Luzon. I'll talk about that in a second. Let's talk about now Tropical Storm Goni, known as Rolly here in the Philippines. Pressure's up to 1,000 HPA, winds are 101 kilometers per hour. It's a tropical storm now, completely and utterly falling apart here. Good riddance on this guy. It is going to bring some rainfall, though, to parts of Vietnam. Actually, take a look at the intensity here from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. It's 50 as it nears landfall, still a tropical storm, and then it quickly dissipates out here into the Indochina Peninsula. Anyways, let's take a look at the bigger picture here. Okay, high pressure towards the north, dominating southeastern areas of China. You got our gravity well of a system, which has really been just dominating the tropics. But with that weakening, Atsani is going to start to be able to gather some of that energy. Remember, it's not really, when people say, okay, these two storms are going to collide, it's going to be a big explosion. That's not how it typically happens in the atmosphere. One system usually just kind of sucks everything in around it. With this one weakening, though, that allows more potential energy in the atmosphere to start to get absorbed by Atsani here, and we're starting to see convection flare up a little bit around the storm system. Thus, a bit of intensification in our forecast here. If you're here in northeastern Luzon, even over towards Taiwan, we're keeping an eye on it. But there's a lot of variables in this forecast. I would love to say exactly where it's going to go. I'm going to tell you right now, not sure. I'm not going to say any. Look at the ensemble here. Very rare you see a storm do a loop-de-loop in the spaghetti plots. And then once it gets done with that loop-de-loop, it just scatters everywhere. Now, if you're not sure what you're looking at with a spaghetti plot, by the way, basically, this is starting off, since we don't have hurricane hunters here, this is very useful, starting off with a different initializing condition by a degree or two, maybe at the surface temperature, stuff like that. Then, due to chaos theory, each plot shows how the model is kind of making a different forecast here, just because of a slight difference in the initial variables. That's why sometimes the run will pull it towards the north, and sometimes the run pulls it due west. What we try to see is a concentration despite those different variables, and that looks like it's lying right about here. It's about where the Joint Typhoon Warning Center's forecast actually is shown right now. I'll show that in just a second. So here's our system, starting to round off towards the north here. You got that high pressure here, and you got a trough coming in out of Japan. So it's just that interaction that's going to lift off towards the north. Is it going to get picked up by that trough? Is this high going to retreat just enough to kind of nudge it towards the north, maybe towards the southern Japanese islands, and then it'll get picked up by a trough? Or is it going to round what's left of Goni, following behind it, kind of like a tail, and whip across northern Luzon as we go ahead into the latter part of this week? There's a lot going on here. Look at the forecast. This thing just can't make up its mind. It's just doing loops out there. People are asking, is this part of the Fujiwara effect? Kinda. Not exactly Fujiwara effect. It's its own thing. All right, so there's a look at that forecast. Remember, a lot of variables here, but like I said, the concentration does bring it out here around Apari, Cagayan, northeastern Luzon, I should say. That's where some of the impacts are. If you guys got any questions, comments, or suggestions, please let me know. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. I always appreciate feedback as well. I know there are some of you that don't like what I say on some of these, and you do comment. You know what? I take all of your feedback. I don't get upset about it. So if you got anything you want to say, let me know. If you got any impacts out here, please let me know as well. I try my best to relay that information. And yeah, you know, this was a tough one to forecast. Yeah, the track itself and just how it was going to come on shore, yeah, it was pretty straightforward. But as I always say, you know, you got this right here in that outer eye wall around that storm system. That's where we had those max winds, the max storm surge, and yes, 300-kilometer-per-hour winds. And I've actually gotten a few messages, people saying, especially from Manila, saying, where were they 300-kilometer-per-hour winds at? It weakened after it moved on shore. But if you were not in that core right near the eye wall, the forecast would have been vastly different than if you were in the core. So that's what's tricky about forecasting, is why you always got to look back and just take a look at it. And that's what I'm going to be doing here over the next few days. Might put out a video in a few days. But stay safe out there for now, guys. As always, thanks for watching. I'm going to stop rambling here. Thanks for watching.